Angers is a city in western France, about 300 kilometers southwest of Paris. It is chef-lieu of the Maine-et-Loire department, and was, before the French Revolution, the capital of the province of Anjou. The inhabitants of both the city and the province are called Angevins. The commune of Angers proper, without the metropolitan area, is the third most populous in northwestern France after Nantes and Rennes, and the 17th in France. Angers is the historical capital of Anjou and was for centuries an important stronghold in northwestern France. It is the cradle of the Plantagenet dynasty and was during the reign of René of Anjou one of the intellectual centres of Europe. Angers developed at the confluence of three rivers, the Mayenne, the Sarthe, and the Loire, all coming from the north and flowing south to the Loire. Their confluence, just north of Angers, creates the Maine, a short but wide river that flows into the Loire several kilometers south. The Angers metropolitan area is a major economic center in western France, particularly active in the industrial sector, horticulture, and business tourism. Angers proper covers 42.70 square kilometers and has a population of 147,305 inhabitants, while around 394,700 live in its metropolitan area. The Angers-Loire metropole is made up of 33 communes covering 540 square kilometers with 287,000 inhabitants. Angers enjoys a rich cultural life, made possible by its universities and museums. The old medieval centre is still dominated by the massive chateau of the Plantagenets, home of the Apocalypse tapestry, the biggest medieval tapestry ensemble in the world. Angers is also both at the edge of the Val de Loire, a World Heritage Site, and the Loire-Anjou-Touraine Regional Natural Park. Toponymy. Etymology. The city is first mentioned by Ptolemy around AD 150 in his Geography. It was then known as Julio-Magus, a name by which it also appears in the Tabula Peutingeriana. The name is a compound of the Latin name Julius and the Celtic magos, market. Similar town dedications were common in Roman Gaul, and toponyms often kept a Gallic element. When the location needed to be distinguished from other Julio-Magi, it was known as Julio-Magus Andicavorum, in reference to the principal Gallic tribe in and around the city. Around AD 400, the city came to be referred to as the Civitas Andicavorum. This was a common change in Gaul, also seen in the names of Paris, Tours and Evreux around this time. During the Middle Ages, the late Latin name gradually developed into the modern one. It is successively mentioned as Andecavus Civitas, Andicavus, Andegavis, Angius and Angius. The form Angiers appeared during the 12th century and was later corrupted to Angers. The Latin Andicavum gave also Anjou its name. This double formation is quite common in France and is also seen in Poitiers and Poitou and Bourges and Berry. Nicknames. Angers was traditionally known as the Black City, from its slate roofs. As these have become less common since the development of the city in the 19th century, the city has also been known as the Athens of the West, a name born since the 19th century from the development of its university. The City of Flowers, a name from the Second Empire. Green City, from its modern tufa facades and with ironic reference to its former name. Heraldry. The coat of arms of Angers bears the French royal fleur-de-lis of the Dukes of Anjou. The key evokes the stronghold position of the city, close to the Bretagne border. An acrostic from the Middle Ages calls it Antique Clef de France, which means Antique Key to France. Antique Clef de France. Netité de souffrance. Garant contre animus. Étape d'assurance. Recourse de secourance. Sécurité de mise. Under Napoleon I's rule, Angers was one of the bonnes villes, and was therefore allowed to ask for a new coat of arms. The bees, symbol of the First French Empire, then replaced the royal fleurs de lis. In 1949, Angers received the 1939–1945 War Cross, and since then, the decoration is sometimes placed between the two fleurs de lis. Angers also had several mottos through its history. During antiquity, Isilius Conciliaza, from 1434 to 1480. Dardum de Acute Sir, in 1499. Antique Clef de France, until June 1987. Angers, La Qualité. Geography. Location: Angers is located at the geographical center of the Maine-et-Loire department, on the road which connects Paris to the Atlantic Ocean. The city is situated just south of the confluence of the Loire, Mayenne and Sarthe, which form together the river Maine. The Maine crosses Angers and heads south towards the Loire. The confluence of the three rivers and the proximity of the Loire make up a natural crossroads which favored the foundation of the antique Julio Magus. Angers is located 91 kilometers from Nantes, 124 kilometers from Rennes, 132 kilometers from Poitiers and 297 kilometers from Paris. It is also 118 kilometers far from Pornic, the closest sea resort, situated on the Atlantic Ocean. Elevation varies 12 to 64 meters above sea level. Angers is a hilly town, particularly marked by a rocky promontory dominating the lower valley of Anjou. This was the site of the ancient city and still houses the town's castle, cathedral, and medieval quarters. At the north and south, where the river Maine arrives in and leaves Angers, the landscape is formed by islands, ponds and floodplains which are a haven for birds and a typical flora of the Val de Loire. The Étang St. Nicolas and Lac de Maine, both artificial, are among the biggest green areas of the city. Metropolitan area. The commune of Angers is bordered by 10 other communes which form various suburbs. These are clockwise: Avrillé, Cantigny-Epinard, Écaflant, Saint-Barthélemy d'Anjou, Trélazé, Les Ponts de Cé-Acute, Saint-Gemme-sur-Loire, Beauchemain and Beaucouset. 22 other communes situated farther form with them the agglomeration community of the Angers-Loire Metropole. All these peripheral communes are situated within 17 kilometers from Angers proper. Together, they have around 272,400 inhabitants. Climate: Angers enjoys a very mild climate because of its location between oceanic and continental climate. Winters are usually wet, with scarce frosts and snowfalls, and summers are warm and sunny. Urban morphology: the oldest streets and buildings in Angers are located on the promontory where the castle stands. The urban structure there dates back from the 13th, 14th and 15th centuries. A military presence there has been attested since the 3rd century, and some remains of an antique city wall are still visible in the castle grounds. This wall was built to protect the city from the Germanic invasions of AD 275 and 276. The castle was during the Middle Ages the core of the city defense system, composed of tall city walls and river chains to prevent enemy ships from going up the Maine. The walls were last reconstructed between 1230 and 1240, on an order of Louis IX of France. Today, portions of wall are still visible in Rue Toussaint and Boulevard Carnot, as well as some towers, like the Tour Villebon and the Tour des Anglais. Before the first cadastre, the city had maintained much of its medieval limits on and around the castle promontory, with some dwellings on the other bank of the Maine, a quarter called L'Ardetre. That part of the city experienced a quick development during the Industrial Revolution and became a big river port. Industry was encouraged by firms like Bessonneau and Cointreau. After 1850, many suburbs appeared around the train stations and the father slate quarries in Trélazé. Despite the port in L'Ardetre, demographic growth and urban extension were still more important on the eastern bank of the Maine, on which the ancient Julio Magus was founded. The medieval city centre was redeveloped and expanded from 1791. The Place du Ralliement, the main square, was then built in place of 3 churches destroyed during the French Revolution, and, later, ring boulevards planted with trees replaced the city walls. The architectural style used is mainly Haussmannian, but leaves sometimes room for Palladian, Art Nouveau or Art Deco buildings. After 1945 and the Second World War, several large council estates made of tower blocks were built around the city centre, the first of them being Bell Bay in 1953. The industrial activities drastically changed. Port activity declined whereas new factories, such as Technicolor SA in 1957, emerged. During the 1970s, the modernist approach on urban extension was replaced by a more individualistic point of view, and more detached houses were built for the middle class. The metropolitan area kept enlarging. Commuting became general and new shopping areas were constructed close to the former villages engulfed by the city. Because of the floodplains that surround the city north and south, Angers can only grow significantly on an east-west axis. The Tour des Anglais, a remain of the medieval city walls. Traditional slated roof, half-timbered houses in Rue de Oisellerie. View of La Doutre. The industrial port has become a marina. The Place du Ralliement, a department store on a 19th-century street. A council estate in La Roseraie. Green areas being both at the edge of the Val de Loire World Heritage Site and on the largest river confluence in France. Angers has a high natural potential, notably highlighted by the Saint-Aubin Island, situated north of the centre and covering a tenth of the city total surface. Protected, the island is formed of swamps and natural meadows. The oldest green areas date back from the Renaissance, when the moats of the castle were transformed into pleasure and kitchen gardens. Similar gardens were built by the aristocracy around their hotels, particuliers, and medicinal gardens were planted in hospices, cloisters. The Jardin des Plantes, the first botanical garden, dates back from the beginning of the 18th century. During the 19th century, others were built, for example the Faculty of Pharmacy Garden and the Roseraie. The first recreational parks, for their part, were built during the Second French Empire. The Étang Saint-Nicolas, made by a sluice on a small river, the Brianneau, was protected as early as 1936. The Jardin du Mail, an esplanade situated outside the Ring Boulevards, was built between 1820 and 1880 on the former Champs de Mars. Another esplanade, the Mail François Mitterrand, was built in 1999 together with a garden inside the new Saint-Serge business district. During the 1960s, the old gravel pits around the main were filled with water to form the Lac de Maine, which now hosts a marina. In 2010, a large amusement park, Terra Botanica, was inaugurated close to Saint-Aubin Island. The Saint-Aubin Island protected area. Planted quays around the River Maine. Jardin du Mail. Sunset on the Lac de Maine. Terra Botanica.